Well, good evening, everybody. Tonight we have Kelly Russo with us, who last feast, Sukkot, took the time to go to Saudi Arabia and saw a whole lot of cool stuff. And he's here tonight to share it with us, his trip and the wonderful things that he was able to see. So at this time, we turn it over to you, Kelly.
Thank you. It it was beyond an awesome trip. And when I put this PowerPoint together, it was meant to be put together for as a teaching for maybe people that are more Sunday people. Um, but yeah, we'll just go and I suppose the way to do it is, I mean, if you want to ask questions or something as we go, that's fine. There's over 200 slides, so
Oh,
uh,
we already have a question.
what's that?
John?
Yeah, Kelly, can you tell us a little bit about you? Because I'm not familiar with who you are, and
Oh, we weren't going to say that. No, go ahead. Yeah, give a
and I
little
guess
bio of yourself.
also, did you guys just go on your own, or was there a group that went, or and maybe you're going to cover that in your
No, that's fine. Debbie, my wife and I went in October last year, and we went with Joel Richardson. And at that point, we were his fourth trip. Saudi Arabia opened up to tourism late 2019 because the number two in charge, the Prince Solomon, something like that.
Soleimani? Yeah,
Yeah, he realized that, hey, what happens if we run out of oil? So they have three major projects going, and each project costs $500 million dollars, or is it 500 billion? It's some crazy amount of money. But they're opening up to tourism. And as we go, the split rock, the rock that Moses struck,
right.
there's going to be an asphalt highway probably within 3/4 of a mile from there now. So we were there before, as this was happening on the front side, because now it's going to start to get commercialized and they're going to open up to hotels and the Sea of Aqaba. It's pristine. There's nothing there but a road. It's just beautiful, and the water is really quite warm. So
yeah, so I was wondering if you went with Joel's groups because I'd heard that there might be some other groups. So yeah, it makes sense. I've seen some of the stuff from other groups that went with him. We actually were on the Egyptian side, but weren't able to go over to Saudi Arabia. So it's kind of interesting. That's why I'm interested in seeing your presentation. Sorry to sidetrack you. Go forward.
Oh, you're fine. And Saudi Arabia, we have to remember, is the ancient land of Midian, which brings a whole nother thing in. But
Absolutely, right.
yeah, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He never changes. And Joel made a point. He said, if God did these things for the children of Israel, all these things that we study about, and we know what he's going to do in the future, we can trust him for today. And that was a comment that just really hit me. So, because a lot of times people say, well, I look at the miracles God did yesterday and what he's going to do tomorrow, but not now. I disagree with that. So anyway, and then this just goes on, but evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses, truth will stand. And if you haven't ever studied the difference between Greek thought and Hebrew thought, it's a wonderful study, because the Greek thought, how we're taught to think, is 180 degrees backwards from biblical thought. And what God has joined together, let no man separate. And as we go through the slides, where at the base of Mount Sinai, the Saudi government put a fence up, and probably, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago, something like that, I don't know if it was a big wind, sandstorm, knocked a portion of the fence down, which is kind of symbolic, like God's opening up for people to come look at his mountain. for such a time as this. Numbers, it talks about 603,000 fighting men. So in my opinion, it's pretty easy to get to about 3 million people, between 2 to 3 million people out in the wilderness, because I'm trying to think of a town that has 3 million people. I don't even know, but 2 to 3 million people, that's a lot of people. So we got to keep this in mind as we go. Debbie said Milwaukee has about 3 million people, the whole metro area. So can you imagine that many people walking around in the desert? And if you guys want to take a picture or a screenshot of this, Jim and Penny Cadwell, they have a wonderful, all kinds of information. If you guys have never studied this, study it. It's so wonderful. And then Ron Wyatt, he has God orchestrated him to discover a whole bunch of things. Noah's Ark. And he didn't discover Mount Sinai, where the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea. The pillars were the Red Sea. It's just a plethora of information. And really, I'm just kind of doing a 20,000 foot flyby here. But those are two really good sites. We have to remember Paul was a scholar, or is a scholar. He was probably one of the smartest guys in the world at that time. So, and he said, for whatever things were written beforehand were written for our learning. He references Torah, and a lot of times because we're taught to think Greek, we just kind of cruise by it. Okay. This is a layout of the Gulf of Aqaba. If you put your hand up, your left hand up, this Gulf of Aqaba is kind of like your thumb. The Red Sea is at the bottom and up to the left. And halfway up the top, you see Nueva. That is probably where the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea. That little discolored area just above the red dot is an area where the children of Israel were captured. I shouldn't say captured, but they were pinned between the mountains and the sea. And if you look to the left, you can see it looks like maybe a little blue there. And that's the wadi, or the space between two mountains, because the Pharaoh and his army was coming in and they had him. I'm sure the Egyptians were thinking, we got him. And that's what Exodus tells us there. Go to the next one, Peggy, please. Yeah, keep going. Okay, go ahead, Peggy. This is a marker that was on the Saudi Arabia side of the Gulf of Aqaba. And Mr. Wyatt, he discovered this pillar when it was standing up vertical. And what the Saudi government did is they realized that this is something important. So they took it down and they have it, and they put this marker up. There was some pictographs on there, and on another slide coming up, it'll say some of the names that were on this slide. And there's a scripture reference. Go ahead, Peggy. There's a scripture reference that states Solomon put up where the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea as a memorial. Ron Wyatt first came to this area in 1978, and on the Egyptian side, after one of the wars, he was down there when the Israeli army was running around, and he noticed this column was kind of in the water, kind of out of the water, and waves were coming up, splashing on it. And he went and told one of the Israeli Defense Force officers. So that kind of went up the food chain. A couple of days later, the column disappeared. And then on the next trip, they were arrested, and the Saudi government it was Ron Wyatt and I think one or two of his sons in a helicopter so he could show them where this was. And they came across the Gulf of Aqaba, which is, I'm guessing, about 9 miles wide. And the only reason I say that is because Lake Winnebago, just south of Appleton, is about 13 miles wide. So I just kind of use that as a reference point because you can see across the Gulf of Aqaba. But when they flew across in the helicopter, they saw this standing vertical column. They got pictures of it. I don't have any pictures of it, but there's pictures on their website. Okay. And some of the things that were on this column was Mitzrayim, Solomon, Edom, death, Pharaoh, Moses, and Yahweh. So that's pretty cool. And by the evidence of 2 or 3, truth is confirmed. There's 2 pillars. There's these inscriptions on there. Mr. Richardson told us he was talking with some, it's a family. They're not royal family, but they have a lot of money in Saudi Arabia, and he's gotten to know them fairly well. And this gentleman had basically told Joel that we have some things and we're not ready to release it yet. That was kind of off the record and under the table. So the Saudi government has a lot of things and they know what they have. They know what they have. Okay, Peggy. Yeah, King Solomon, he built a fleet. Thank you. King Solomon built a fleet of ships, and they were running out of Elat, or Elath is what it is there on the Red Sea. And there's scripture reference for that. Okay. Ron Wyatt worked in a hospital, and he started studying all these historical people, Josephus, Philo, Sir Richard Burton. And so he kind of had an idea what he was looking for, but kind of not. His testimony, if you guys haven't spent time on his website and watching some of his YouTube channels, it will blow your socks off. It is awesome. Okay. And where that marker was a number of slides ago, Ron Wyatt and his sons went scuba diving there. And I'd say a lot of the people tonight have seen pictures of chariot wheels, horse hooves, and some other remains. The remains are covered in coral. And they got a picture of one that's a 4-spoke wheel, and I believe it was gold. They figured it was gold because of I think it's the 18th dynasty in Egypt, if I remember right. And because that's the only time they had those. Well, there you go. Thank you. Right on. Spend time on their website. It'll blow your socks off. Okay. Yeah. And here's that marker again. I don't know what all that means in the language, but that's what it is. And this was maybe 300 yards from the Gulf of Aqaba inland. And that's just our little group. I think there was 19 of us, that people from all over the world, people from Hong Kong. There was a young lady there from around Brazil, Poland, United States. It was, if you guys get a chance to go. And the picture on the right is, I was standing on the ancient land of Midian side looking across, and that's the New Abel beach. And that was just taken with my phone. And you can kind of see in the middle right, you can see that side of that, I'll call it mountain hill coming down. And if you go down, that's the wadi that comes through the mountains where the children of Israel would have come, and they were captive right there. I always think of Charlton Heston holding up his hands. That's just a vision I have. Okay. Now, is this one of the pictures from Ron Wyatt?
No, this is my picture. We were in Egypt on Nuebi Beach. And this is the pillar on the Egyptian side.
Wow.
And it's probably about 30 feet tall.
Yep.
And it's made of a granite that's not from around that area. So and of course, like you'd mentioned, you showed the plate on the ground on the Saudi Arabian side.
Yep.
This is what it would have been standing there. This pillar had been closer to the water. It had fallen over, and the writing from the erosion is basically all gone off from it. So they've moved this back off the water. It's about a half mile maybe off the water, and stood it back up again. But that gives you a picture also of the Nuebi Beach. Nuebi Beach, it's about maybe a mile from those mountains on the left out to the water, and maybe 3 to 4 miles long. So certainly a big enough area for 2.5, 3 million people to be there. But the other, let me give you one more.
How tall would that pillar be, John?
It was about 30 feet tall. Okay, this is a picture from the Wavy Beach, and we actually stayed on the Wavy Beach. There's at least two
Wow.
two resorts built there now. So we actually stay, yeah, there might be more now. But this is a picture looking across into where you were in Saudi Arabia. And we were told this was about 8 miles across.
Oh, I had a pretty good guess then.
Yeah. So you can see the beach there, and there's, a lot of structures and things. So we actually drove back the wadi. And as you were talking, the mountains here are like sheer, almost straight up. And so once the Israelites were in this path, there's no place for them to go. They're trapped there. But it also, this is like a picture from the beach looking towards where that wadi's at.
Yeah.
So you could think about the pillar of fire when it moved around and blocked the Egyptians. They were following the Israelites through this wadi. It would have been easy to block that wadi with the pillar of fire. There would be no way to get around.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. So we actually, we drove back in here about 5 miles. This is our group. Drove back in here about 5 miles.
When did you go there?
I've been to Israel about 5 times. This particular trip in the Wavy Beach was in 2005.
Okay.
So let me back up. So this is a picture looking from the wadi out onto the beach. And so you can see the mountains are pretty tall here. This is an acacia tree, which of course is what they made the ark and stuff out of acacia wood.
Yep.
And then covered it with gold. So anyways, we had a teaching here in the shade, like you said, because it's pretty hot. Anyways, just some pictures to kind of support what you were saying. It was just a great trip if you can get a chance to.
And you can kind of see in the middle right, you can see that side of that, I'll call it mountain hill coming down. And if you go down, that's the wadi that comes through the mountains where the children of Israel would have come, and they were captive right there. I always think of Charlton Heston holding up his hands. That's just a vision I have. Okay. And from where the last slide was, where the marker was, if you turn and face the Gulf of Aqaba, Joel said, well, there's a guard shack down there, so we probably shouldn't go down there. But a gentleman from Canada, by the time he said that, he was already halfway there. So my question is, what would a guard shack be doing in the middle of nowhere, protecting nothing? So it kind of gives you reason to wonder. Okay. And that's just a close-up of the guard shack. Okay. This gentleman, he's the gentleman that was halfway there. He's a retired firefighter from Canada. I want to say Quebec, but don't quote me on that. And Vlad, he was a good guy. He's a good guy. Okay. That's a selfie. And straight across, right behind off Vlad's left ear, straight across would be the Nuevo Beach. The crossing of the Red Sea with the children of Israel is a picture of, being mikvah, and it's God with his bride. And Debbie and I haven't even been married 3 years yet. So I took off my shoes and I scooped her up and I flipped my phone to Vlad and I said, here, take a picture. I'm carrying my bride where the children of Israel were. So that's kind of neat. And then this talks about God hardening Pharaoh's heart. Okay. So he made the chariots ready to go after the people, and he took 600 select chariots. That's a lot of chariots. That's a lot of horses. That's a lot of men to go into battle. Go ahead. But Moses said to the people, fear not, stand by and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you'll never see them again forever. And go ahead and flip it. And when it says the salvation, Up here, underlined on the right-hand side, it's an Aleph Tav salvation, which is obviously a picture of Messiah. Okay. And he took off their chariot wheels, so they drove them with difficulty. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from the face of Israel, for Yahweh fights for them against the Egyptians." So that scripture and the pictures that Ron Wyatt took, there's physical, tangible evidence of the scripture. Okay. But the sons of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea, and the water was like a wall to them on their right and their left. And I think another miracle is if you have 2 million people, if you have 3 million people to walk 10 miles in a short period of time on dry land, I'm thinking there had to be some type of conveyor belt or something down there, because those people would have to fly across there to get through there. But something else to think about. Okay. Oh, and I just threw this in. Why do we need a new wineskin? Christianity started out in Israel as a fellowship. It moved to Greece and became a philosophy, went to Rome and became an institution. Then it went to Europe and became a government. Finally, it came to America, where it was made an enterprise. That's just sad, but that's the way it is. And thank God for a remnant. And it seems like the older Testament is physical pictures and concepts, and the renewed Testament is spiritual pictures. And then the children of Israel traveled over the Gulf of Aqaba, and they went to Elam. So 15:22, then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out in the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink the waters, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name was Marah. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" Then he cried out to Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him a tree, and he threw it into the waters, and the water became sweet. There he made for them a statute and a regulation, and there he tested them. If we think we're so special that we're not going to get tested, we can have a conversation about that. Okay, go ahead. And he said to them, "If you will give earnest heed to the voice of Yahweh, your Elohim, and do what is right in his sight, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I have the Egyptians, for I, Yahweh, am your healer." It's a conditional covenant, if then. Oh, and Elam, yeah, there was the 12 wells and 70 palm trees, and we're coming up to that. As I was putting this together, I got a chance to study the Hebrew. The Passover is a picture of us and our salvation. Crossing the Red Sea is a picture of our mikvah. And then the first thing, we came to Marah. So it's a picture of us dealing with our bitterness. Because if we don't deal with our bitterness and unforgiveness, I mean, how many people do we know are stuck in bitterness? So I believe it's a progression picture of what God wants us to do. He wants us to be saved. He wants us to be baptized mikvah, and he wants to get rid of our bitterness. And the tree in the Hebrew, it's a Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh tree that Moses threw into the water. And when Yeshua was crucified, the sign above his head had Yeshua HaMetzeret Vel-Melech HaYoadim, which is a acrostic for Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So at the foot of the cross is where we need to deal with our bitterness. And that's something that Debbie and I, when we pray with people, we really hit on that. So this is Elam. As we were driving into Elam, the tour company, it's called Living Passages. And the lady that owns Living Passages, her first name is Rhonda. I'm drawing a blank on her last name. I think it's Sand, but don't quote me on that. She did a high percentage of all of Chuck Missler, his travel, because they're both based out of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And she would actually, Chuck hired her, so when he would fly, she would sit next to him so people wouldn't come up and start talking to him. She has been all over the world, countless times. So this, and as we were flying in, or excuse me, coming into Elam, she was in our vehicle, and those white Toyota Land Cruisers, there was 7 or 8 of them in our caravan. There's usually 3 people in each car. But as we were coming in, she was talking, and behind her, quail or partridge, they have a particular flight pattern. So when you see it, you can identify them right away. And as we were coming into Elam, I saw some quail. So I thought that was pretty cool because God gave quail to the children of Israel. And this is just walking down to where he was going to give a little teaching. That's a picture of Joel right there. And what he would do is we'd go to a site, he'd give, anywhere from a 10 to maybe a 20-minute little teaching. And then, we'd walk around and pick up rocks and, do whatever we were going to do. And in the background there, you can see some palm trees, and there's a well. The 4 guys on the right-hand side, up on the right-hand side, you can see a little circle there, which is, hopefully it's one of the original wells. Who knows what people have done over the last 3,500 years. There you go. If you guys have questions, don't hesitate to jump in. I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? And then what we did is we walked from Elam, we walked down through the Wadi, which is the sand between the mountains. And there's all kinds of greenery there and plants, just more in the Wadi. And some of these palm trees are big. And as we were walking, that rock up on the left-hand side, I told Debbie, I said, doesn't that look like it's just kind of teetering there? So I took a couple pictures of that. More Wadi things. Okay. And it was hot. There was no breeze in this Wadi. And I don't know what the temperature was, but it had to have been 100, 110. It was warm. Just some plants. And on the right-hand side, I don't know if it's a cactus, cacti, but I tell you what, those things were incredibly sharp. And I thought of the crown of thorns when I took the picture. That little thing that Debbie's holding, it was not quite the size of an apple. And we thought, that'll be kind of neat to take back to Wisconsin. Well, Rhonda, the tour guide, said that in the ancient times, the women would eat that to cause a miscarriage. And don't quote me on the name of it, but I'm going to pass. I don't want to say the wrong thing. But that's what she told us they would use it for. And there was this little spring would pop up and it would go for a ways and then it would go down. And I thought, well, I got to get a drink from it. So I was taking a drink. And could you imagine 2-3 million people going through this? Because on the left-hand side there's some areas I bet were less than 75 feet wide. And if you were the enemy, it would be really easy it'd be like shooting fish in a rain barrel or dumping rocks on them or something. And these pictures don't do it justice, but some of these rocks, these cliffs were probably 200, 250 feet straight up. And the reason I say that is because a silo, those Blue Harvester silos, go from 60 to 110 feet. And my brother-in-law was a dairy farmer and I used to climb them. So I got an idea of how tall they are. And that tree, I'm laying underneath that tree on the left. You can barely see me. That tree was huge. The shade, the temperature in the shade versus the temperature in the sun had to have been 20 degrees difference. And that shade felt really good. And then on the right-hand side, the blonde-haired lady on the right, she's from Hong Kong. The other lady, second from the right, is Hong Kong. The other lady is from Brazil. And then my wife and the gentleman in the back, he's from the East Coast.
Gina has a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, it's sort of a question and a comment. In my mind, and all the research that I have done in this, that it seems as though you can see how big those trees are. You can see their springs. You can see the water and the rock formations, that there is water. and plant life in those rocks. And so it seems to me that this place was a way more plush than.
Yep.
Would you agree? Is that a good assessment?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It was, and we have to remember that it's roughly, 3,500 years later. So things change, and a lot of
Right, the
times,
climate changes and all kinds of things. Yeah.
exactly, and like numbers, bar midbar, it means wilderness, and wilderness doesn't necessarily mean desert. Wilderness can be,
Exactly. That's the way I've always felt. That's the way I've always felt. Plus they had all that. They had food and they had it tells about what they ate and and stuff. So they weren't just completely, it was rough land, but it didn't mean that, and there was like wild animals that could get them, but it didn't mean that it was just dry. So I like these pictures because it definitely shows the evidence that there was a whole lot more of that then than there is now.
there was a battle in that Moses did, and they gave account of the livestock that they captured as booty. Debbie, my wife, and I, we have 2 cows, a bull, and 2 calves, and we have just 5 acres, and those cows eat a lot of grass. So when you start talking 100,000 sheep, and 5,000, 10,000 cattle, and all these numbers, it's like you need a lot of water, you need a lot of grass, you need a lot of everything just for the animals to survive. So I understand why Reuben and Gad and why they wanted to stay on the one side of the promised land, because it was green for their livestock. I understand all that. Yep, and just walking down the wadi. I mean, the picture on the left-hand side, look at those 2 men, and say they're 6 foot tall. I mean, just do the math. That little pinch point right there is what, maybe 50 or 60 feet wide. And from a armed force point of view, that would be a great point to get people. This is the caravan drove around and was waiting for us. They treated us like kings and queens. It was awesome. The split rock at Horeb. This was the second sight that we saw. Then all the congregation of the sons of Israel journeyed by stages from the wilderness of Sin according to the command of Yahweh, and camped at Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses, saying, "Give us water that we may drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test Yahweh?" But the people thirsted for water, and they grumbled against Moses, saying, "Why now have you brought us up from Egypt to kill us and our children and livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to Yahweh, saying, "What shall I do with these people? A little more, and they will stone me." And it was interesting. I never did this, but how many times did the children of Israel say, "to kill us and our children"? They were basically putting a curse on themselves, where finally Yahweh said, "Okay, you said it. Everyone 20 years and older, you're dying in the wilderness." Verse 5, then Yahweh said to Moses, "Pass before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and go in your hand with the staff which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there at the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people may drink." And Moses did in the sight of the elders of Israel. As we were driving up, you can see in the front, here's where they're building a road, and it'll be within a mile of the rock at Horeb. And Yahweh told Moses, "Go strike the rock at Horeb." That would be like somebody saying, "I'll meet you at the mall in Appleton." If you don't know where the mall is, you could ask anybody when you get to Appleton, "Where's the mall?" And I just kept snapping pictures as we were getting closer and closer. More pictures. Okay. More pictures. And this one right here, that you can see that the rock is kind of up. Not only is it up on a little hill, but as the water flowed out, it would have flowed down and flowed towards the point where we took the camera or took the picture. And the hill, I kind of guesstimated to be about 150 feet tall. And the rock is 60 to 80 feet tall. And across the front is about 60 feet, and it's maybe 25 feet thick. That's more of a straight on shot. Yeah, that's a close up. Now look at the people. The third on the bottom, kind of to the right hand side, is a man with a hat on, and I'm not quite sure who that is. But if you take him as 6 foot tall and just kind of do the math and just kind of bring him up that hill, you can get to 100 feet pretty easy. And you keep doing that with the rock, that'll give you a good estimation of the size of everything. When we got there, and we'd been driving for a lot, and Joel said, we were all together, and he goes, we can have lunch first, or we can climb up here and take a look at it. And there was about 20 of us, and nobody said anything. And I said, I didn't come this far to have lunch. I said, let's climb. So away we went. Yep, climbing. And I didn't do it, but one of the group guys said, if you go on Google Earth, you can see water erosion, signs of water erosion, and the rocks, because if you have 3 million people and that water coming out of there, there's going to be a water erosion. And that's the reason I took this picture. It was kind of rough, but you got to remember too that when it gets windy out there, it's like a sandblaster, because that sand does a lot of damage. And when I was up about 3/4 of the way and I turned around, the one car to the right, or the Land Cruiser to the right, was not in our group, but the other ones were, and they set up lunch for us while we were climbing. Joel was going up just in front of us, and he was standing over that, and I said, hey, hold on, that'd be a really good picture. So that's a shot of Joel. And then that split in that rock is maybe 2 feet wide, maybe 2.5 feet wide. The lady in front in the blue is from Poland, and the lady in the back is from, I think she's from North Carolina. And we're all on a WhatsApp, and we still all communicate with each other, which is pretty cool. Debbie and I, this is inside of the rock, and I took a picture. And Debbie and I had prayed with a gal about 2-3 months before we went, and she's a seer. And this is exactly what she saw, because I printed the picture and I gave it to her, and she goes, Kelly, that's exactly what I saw. It was funny because in the vision that she had, she goes, I see this name. It's M-O-S-E-S. I said, yeah, that's Moses. And I described the rock that she was looking at. So it was pretty cool. And then picture of me and the rock. And actually, a little further in off my left arm, there was a little crevice in there. And I stuck my hand in there, and I have a souvenir from inside the rock. And there's Debbie crawling up. I went around and came up the backside. Okay. And it was hot. And then as we were coming down. Okay. And this is the lunch they gave us. And they probably thought, crazy Americans, they sit in the sun and eat. And all the local guys were hanging out in those big rocks in the shade. Okay, go ahead. This picture reminds me of, I called it lunch at the Split Rock Cafe. And it was sad to see the number of plastic water bottles around here, just people littering and throwing them everywhere. And as this opens up to tourism, it probably won't be long and you'll be able to buy a Coke and a burger before you go and take a look at it, which is going to be sad. The Split Rock at Horeb, and he named the place Massah and Meribah because of the quarrel of the sons of Israel, and because they tested Yahweh, saying, is Yahweh among us or not? verse 8. Then Amalek came and fought against Israel at Rephidim. And what this is a picture of, the children of Israel doubted if Yahweh was among them. And because of their spiritual doubt, and they verbalized the doubt, because they voiced it, then Amalek attacked. So this is a picture, in my opinion, this is a picture of us speaking stupid stuff we shouldn't be saying, opening the door to physical attack, because death and life is in the power of the tongue. This is the next step. Oh, go ahead. Go to the next one, Peggy. Deuteronomy 25. Remember what Amalek did to you along the way when you came out of Egypt, how he met you along the way and attacked among you all the stragglers that were at the rear, and when you were faint and weary, and he did not fear God. So we need to be so very, very careful of what we say. Yeah, Amalek means travail, sorrow. There's a nice little study here. Amalek has a gematria value of 240. There's another Hebrew word that has a value of 240, and it's Safeq. Not quite sure how to pronounce that. Okay, but that's the Hebrew word for doubt. So when we doubt God, in my opinion, that opens up the door for attack. Because the children of Israel doubted, it opened up the door. So once we accept Messiah, and we have the little party on the other side of the freedom, and we get through the mikvah, we deal with our bitterness and our doubt. How many times did Yeshua chastise his Talmudim and say, "Oh, ye of little faith," or they doubted him? We all have to deal with these items: bitterness, doubt, unbelief, double-mindedness, disobedience, unforgiveness. If we can deal with those 6 things, we're going to be so far ahead. Yeah, go ahead. And I put this together as a teaching, and if I keep going, we're going to go way beyond our time. So yeah, go ahead. This is still going into the Amalek thing. Go ahead, Peggy. Now, you can see where Peggy has her arrow right in the middle. If you go around that hill to the right, that's where the split rock at Horeb is. If you make a U-turn up around there, that's where it is. And this is a valley where the arrow is. This is a valley where there wasn't a lot of valleys in that area. So this very well could be the valley of Rephidim, where Moses needed her and Caleb, I believe, to hold up his arms. So it's very possible. Okay.
I think it was Aaron and her.
There you go. Yep, you're right. And on this ridge, there was all kinds of pictographs, these carvings. You got to remember, these guys didn't have little Dremel tools that were battery powered. They took a rock and they chiseled. And you can see on the right-hand side a guy with a bow, and then these different animals. Yep, same one. Okay. A little close up. He's shooting his arrow. Okay. Just a picture of my bride and the gal from North Carolina. Okay. And right behind it in the top right-hand corner is probably the valley of Rephidim, where they fought the Amalekites because of their doubt. Okay. More pictographs. In this area, they were everywhere. It was a ridge that ran maybe 150, 175 feet, and there was a lot of them. Okay. And you have to remember that this area gets about 1/4 inch of rain per year. Okay.
Maybe it was a sort of newspaper people sketched their little drawing and then left it in a pile there.
Well, and it seems like a lot of places where there was a flat surface, somebody carved something on it. Okay, and yeah, and right behind Debbie and I there was well, I should say was, evidence would say that that's probably where that battle was between the Amalekites and the children of Israel. Okay, and it was windy. It was always windy. This is Jethro's Caves. I really didn't put a lot of stock into this one, but okay. I should. It was funny at the base of Mount Sinai, probably a quarter mile away was a cell phone tower. So we actually had pretty good cell phone coverage. And I took a picture of this and I sent it back to our group in Appleton. And I said, "Where's the toilet?" And actually, this was a really, really nice facility. All there was just the hole in the floor. Okay. Yeah, these are and the rock here is really soft. It's really soft. I don't know if it'd be called sandstone or sand slate or something, but it was soft. Okay. Okay. Yeah, the gentleman on the right-hand side, it was about where he is there. I carry a Leatherman's tool with me, and I just took it out and I wanted to see how hard the rock was. And I just scraped it a couple times and it was really soft. And that shade felt very, very good. Okay. And a cave. And the temperature difference from outside to inside was a lot. Okay. I don't know if that was sleeping chambers or places to put bodies. I don't know. Okay. Just a shot with my bride. Okay.
Those were phone booths.
maybe. Okay. Okay. We walked a lot, and this stop was really interesting. They called it Moses's Well, and as you know, there was a lot of activity at the well. That was the social hub. Isaac. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Next one. Just some pictures. And the bad thing about this was somehow in my pocket, my phone, when I take a picture, it would take like a half a second video and then a picture. So none of those pictures transferred. But okay, next one. And actually there was like an artesian well here, and it was maybe, I don't know, 10, 12 inches in diameter, and the water was bubbling up, and there was little minnows swimming right there. And I stuck my hand down in that hole, and I kind of was feeling around a little bit, and I didn't feel anything. And all of a sudden I thought, maybe I shouldn't do this. So I pulled my hand out. Okay, next. We were told that down in this valley, a little to the right, there was an old mosque, and they dated it back to the time of Muhammad. Okay, next slide. And these are date palms. Okay, next. And from what I understand, in every mosque, and if it's pronounced right, it's a Qibla. It points to Mecca, so they know which way they need to pray, when they pray. But this one, on this site, points towards Jerusalem. And I didn't know till about a year ago. it said, this one place I was looking, it said that the Muslims celebrate Yom Kippur, which I kind of went, what? What's that about? And Muhammad really didn't see themselves as a separate religion from Abraham. So I never really chased that rabbit down very much, but I thought it was interesting because once Muhammad was killed or assassinated, that's when everything hit the fan. Chris?
Hey, how you doing? Uh, on the Muhammad thing, I studied Islam after Nidal Hassan shut up Fort Hood. I was like, I got to find out what's in that book. What made that guy, what's making all these Americans go crazy? And just to back up your story, when Muhammad first had his visions, he did point worship towards Jerusalem, and it was synced up, and it was a continuation. And there was a battle where the Jews didn't go out to fight the Romans, and they lost. And that's when he comes back, and that's when he shifted it to the Kaaba, because the pagan Arabs did go out and fight with him. So that shift actually happened during his life. So if there's a mosque that points to Jerusalem, there's a very tiny window of when that would have been built. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah. Well, there's evidence right there supporting your studies. So praise the Lord.
Yep. No, well, studying that religion, I don't know who we're praising, but
well, no, but the evidence, the evidence points that, hey, it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
So he took a left turn and he should have went straight.
That's a fact. There you go.
Oh, the golden calf. Oh, the altar is huge. It's huge. And Yahweh spoke to Moses saying, speak to the children of Israel saying, verily, my Sabbath you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh, and that sanctify you. Okay. And you shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that defiles it shall surely be put to death. For whoever does any work therein, his soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but on the seventh day is Sabbath of rest, holy to Yahweh. Whosoever do any work in the Sabbath, he shall surely be put to death. Okay. Therefore, the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. Okay. And he gave unto Moses, then he had made an end to the communing with him upon Mount Sinai, two tablets of testimony, tablets of stone written with the finger of God. Sabbath is mentioned 6 times in 5 verses, and sign is mentioned twice in 5 verses. So there's some significance here. Okay. Sign in Hebrew, when you take the meaning behind each letter, because every letter is a picture, a word, and a number. Sign, the word picture for sign means leader nailed to a cross. Okay. Okay, go ahead. That's on the word picture on the bottom. And then this is in the Hebrew, where it's Exodus, the next verse, Exodus 32. And here, Exodus 32 is all about the golden calf. But that first letter is a vav, and a vav is a nail, which means and. It's a connector. If you take two 2x4s and you nail them together, that means they're connected. Okay? Peggy, please. So chapter 31 and chapter 32 are really connected because they didn't break them up in chapters until like the 1500s. So not keeping Sabbath is a sign of spiritual idolatry, because the sins of the golden calf is spiritual idolatry and physical idolatry and adultery. So Exodus 32. Now, when the people saw that Moses delayed coming down from the mountain, the people assembled around Aaron and said to him, "Come, let us make a God who will go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what's become of him." And Aaron said to him, "Take off your gold rings, which is in your ears, of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." Then all the people tore off their gold rings, which they had in their ears, and brought them to Aaron. And he took this from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made it into a molten calf. And they said, "This is your Elohim, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." As these areas were getting discovered, what the government of Saudi Arabia did is, wow, this holds some biblical truth, and we don't want all these Christians, especially in America and Europe, to find out that we have all these biblical truths, and it's going to cause a lot of problems for Muslims to be overran with Christians coming here looking at all this stuff. So you can see in the background, they put a fence up. And then there's different languages on this warning sign, okay? And the fence is angled out to keep people out. And evidently, go ahead, next one, please. And the gate's wide open. All they got to do is close it and put a master lock on, and it's locked out. But it's been unlocked, I guess, for a number of years. So behind it is the altar where the golden calf is, okay? Or was, I should say. That's just a little better picture. On the right-hand side, you can see that stone kind of cantilevered out there. And we'll come to that in a little bit. Okay. That from end to end is maybe, with the altar is maybe 60, 70 feet. Okay. Just another shot. Okay. On top of the altar, there were two areas like this. And when it was first brought to the attention of the Saudi government, they sent some archaeologists out there, and they started poking around, and they found some areas where there was some charred wood and some bones. And there was two areas like this, and they determined that, yeah, there's probably sacrifices up here. So that after that was discovered, they put the fence up. Okay. And that's the other area. Okay. And there were pictures of bulls everywhere. And especially if this was the altar of the golden calf, it only makes sense. More pictographs. That was our driver for us. His name was Mohammed. John, Yvette, you got a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you look at those pictographs of the bulls, it's significant that those are Egyptian bulls, not regular bulls. So.
Exactly. Yep. 100% spot on. And look in the background here. You see that nice little olive orchard? Okay. And there's I'll get some pictures down here close up when I get down there. Okay. Okay. And you can see, okay, everybody sees where the little arrow is with the cursor that Peggy has. Just to the right of that, you see a guy with his arms in the air. That would be considered, he's worshiping the animal that's in front of him. So he'd be worshiping this animal. And there's more of those coming further down the line. Okay. And, guys, you remember, I think we all fall victim to this. We go on vacation, we take pictures, and we get really excited to show them to people. And as you're showing them to people, telling them these stories, you get all excited. and the people kind of look at you like, yeah, that's really nice. So I get excited to see these because I haven't looked at them for a while. Okay, next one. I don't know if those are two little dogs there or wolves. Couldn't tell you. Okay. And you got to remember, this was done one blow at a time with rock, rock on rock. Okay. They didn't have a nice little punch. And I took this just for reference so you get an idea how big this is. I'm about 5'9". Okay. More bulls. More bulls. Okay. That's a big bull. Okay. And I didn't know what this was. There were a few places where there was a man standing right behind a bull, and it looked like he was artificially inseminating him because it looked like his arm was up into him. So I have no idea what that means. Okay, another bull. Yeah, and these are Egyptian bulls. John?
I don't think you can artificial inseminate a bull.
True. The two calves that I have out in my pasture right now, they were both AI induced because I didn't have a bull at the time. So yes, I concur. Okay, if you look at the bull, you see the man right above it. You see his two legs. Follow his two legs up, and it looks like he would have an erection. And there were 3,000 people that were killed at this altar when Moses came down. And we'll go to the cemetery where they were buried, but a lot of these pictographs show men with erections, and we know by scripture that it did turn into an orgy. So the physical adultery and the spiritual, the physical and the spiritual is connected. And the sad thing is, let's say there were 3 million people and there were 3,000 people that were involved in this drunken orgy. Yahweh held everybody accountable for the sins of the golden calf because all these other 2.9 million people didn't do anything. And by their inaction, they agreed with complacency. So now Paul says everything written beforehand was written for our learning. So now take that concept and apply it to today. If we don't do something, we get the consequences. So we need to do something. Yes, Chris?
Yeah, not only did they not do anything, when we get later on and they go to build the wilderness tabernacle, they collected more gold than they could use.
Yep.
So there were millions of people who looked up at this and said, no, we're not doing that. And then,
Yep.
Yeah, so there were a lot of good people there.
Yep. But, and yeah, we need, if we're tired of the results that we're getting in society, we need to change what we're doing. We need to change what we're doing, and we need to do what we're supposed to do. Okay. Peggy? When we first got to this site, I had said there was an area that was cantilevered out, and I'm standing directly underneath that cantilevered rock now. And as we get a little bit closer, okay, Peggy, you'll actually see drawings that were painted on the rock. That's it looks like an elk just about. Because you can see, hopefully everyone can see the horns and the snout and the body there. But this has been out of the sun and out of any moisture because it's on the bottom side of that rock that's cantilevered. Okay. And I think, yeah, that's another one there. Okay. And they're all bulls. They're all bulls. Okay. Passive acceptance. We cannot be passive about things. Exodus 32:17. Now, when Joshua heard the sound of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, there is a sound of war in the camp, but he said, it is not a sound of the cry of triumph, nor is it the sound of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing I hear. Okay. And it came about as soon as Moses came near the camp that he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses angered burned, and he threw the tablets from his hands and shattered them at the foot of the mountain. So we'll get to this, but when Moses came down the mountain, from the distance to the mountain to where this altar was about 3/4 of a mile. So I'm guessing as Moses walked or ran that distance, he was getting more and more upset. So verse 20, and he took the calf which he had made and burned it with fire and ground it in powder and scattered over the surface of the water and made the sons of Israel drink it. Okay. And when Moses saw that the people were out of control, for Aaron had let them get out of control, I can't see what that is, must be to the derision among their enemies. And he said to them, thus say Yahweh, the God of Israel, every man of you put his sword upon his thigh and go back and forth from gate to gate in the camp. And I don't know what that says back there. And every man his brother, and every man his friend, and every man his neighbor. Now, I believe it's in Numbers, and I want to say chapter 20 or 21, the jealous husband, how he makes his wife drink, and if she's guilty of adultery, her belly will swell. That's what Moses did when he ground that calf up, and that's how the Levites knew who to kill. And not only this, but I think this plays forward in Revelation when wormwood hits the earth and 1/3 of the waters are bitter. Because that which was written beforehand was written for our learning. And there's so many rabbit trails we could go down on different teachings, but it's phenomenal. So verse 27, and he said to them thank you. Now go ahead to the next one. I think I read that. So the sons of Levi did as Moses instructed, and about 3,000 men of the people fell that day. I mean, you got 3 million people. Who do you know who to kill because of their adultery? And scripture tells us that Moses made everyone drink the water, so they would have swollen. So 100,000, 1/1000th of the people were guilty. If these numbers are accurate, 3 million people, 3,000. The sin of passive agreement, that's what a lot of us are in now. I mean, us as Americans, we passively don't want to get involved. It's like, oh, it's someone else's battle. No, it's our battle. Okay. And now we're getting to the graveyard by the golden calf, and it's fenced off. You can see the fence there. And the man with the hat on there, he was a tall guy, so he's 6 foot. So that's got to be an 8-foot fence plus the barbed wire on top. Do you think the government wanted to keep us out of there? Okay. And what the children of Israel did is they took these bodies and they brought them away, and it's about 3/4 of a mile. And what they did is they took these stones and they stood them up just like this to be a memorial. And that's nothing different than if you go into a graveyard around here, they have memorials. They have stones standing up like that. It's just that they're made of marble and they're cut out and they're laser cut with our names and dates on it. That's the only difference. What am I looking at there? Okay, next one. Oh, one of the guides came up and he had 3 or 4 of these little chipped flint, like an arrowhead. And I said, "Can I have that?" He goes, "Sure." He said they're everywhere there. I didn't find any, but he's been there a lot of times. So that's a nice souvenir that I have from the ancient land of Midian. Okay. A shallow grave. Okay. And the rock, top right, you can see how it's kind of smooth on the inside. That's where the women would have ground the wheat on these rocks, because these people did not have little mini excavators to dig a hole and bury the dead. They carried them about 3/4 of a mile, and they're not going to bury 3,000 people in a day. So the women were there grinding the wheat, feeding the people. So that's just a place where the wheat was ground. Okay. And there were a lot of those around there. And this is a site where what we were told was it was a really big pile of rocks. So there was either nobility there, or 3 or 4, maybe a family of nobility that chose to not wait for Moses and Yahweh. Another grinding area. And you can see the ladies' tennis shoes there, so you kind of get an idea of the size. John?
Yeah, I wonder where they're getting all this wheat. Don't look like I could plant wheat in that ground that I'm seeing right now. So there must have been a different climate at that time.
Yeah, 3,500 years. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's think this through. They're not long out of Egypt, and they probably would have been having manna by then, or maybe they were grinding manna, because they made it into all different kinds of things. Don't we think that manna was kind of like a corian seed? That's what we're led to believe. I don't know. I haven't looked inside the Ark of the Covenant yet.
Well, there must have been some vegetation there, because what would their cattle and sheep and goats eat?
Yep. I think it goes back to that wilderness comment we were talking about earlier. Wilderness versus desert.
And animals can't go very long with no food, right?
Yeah. I've done when I first accepted Jesus. I used to listen to Chuck Missler. I used to get a cassette a week, and somewhere along the lines, he gave a little soundbite of, there was a man that I think he was in World War I, and he was in charge of logistics, and he figured out how much water and how much food it would take for the children of Israel to survive every day. And it was train loads and train loads of food and water. It was astronomical to think of that. Somewhere I had read that if it was 3 million people, I've heard anywhere from 2 million to 12 million. The camp was about 27, 28 square miles. So that's just about the size of Lake Winnebago square. Another little grinding area there. Verse 18, and he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of the communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tablets of testimony, tablets of stone written with the finger of Yahweh. Sabbath is mentioned 6 times in 5 verses. Is there a connection between spiritual adultery and not keeping biblical Sabbath? That'd be a yes. We saw that. Okay. And it came about on the next day that Moses said to the people, you yourselves have committed a great sin, and now I am going up to Yahweh. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. Moses wasn't real fired up to go up there to do this, because he's probably thinking he might wipe me out too. Verse 31, then Moses returned to Yahweh and said, alas, the people has committed a great sin, and they have made a god of gold for themselves. Okay. But now, if thou wilt forgive thy sins and not, please blot me out from thy book, which thou hast written. And Yahweh said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. As we were getting ready to climb Mount Sinai, just to the left of where the arrow is in the middle, that's Joel, and that's another big flat rock where there was all kinds of pictographs. You'll see kind of on the right-hand side, the guy with his hands raised, like he's worshiping this bull, or that one doesn't have horns, but this big animal. And way up on the top right-hand side, I would appear that it's a camel because he has a really long neck.
I think the cursor you're referring to is the one on your screen.
Oh, it is. Oh, beautiful. Oh, thank you. There was evidence of this kind of thing here with people worshiping the animals back in Egypt as well. And you can't see my cursor. Okay. So behind this big animal, you'll see the men. You know, if you look at these men, they have erections. Okay. Oh, there we go. That had to have been a camel, I would think. Okay. More pictographs. The guy on the left-hand side, he has an arrow, a bow and arrow in his hand as well. A man behind the bull again on the left. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what that's about. Okay. Can you imagine how much work this would take to do? It's nothing you're going to get done in 10, 15 minutes. So these people were lingering. Something that I looked for that I did not find was, I think Ron Wyatt had some pictures of like sandals or feet. I never saw any of those, and I was looking for them. And that just kind of gives you an idea of the size. So on the top left-hand side, that bull, I mean, for someone to chisel that, he would have had to have a ladder or something to stand up there and do that, unless he was really, really tall. And you shall make an altar of earth for me, and you shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings, and you will plead offerings, your sheep and your oxen, in every place where you cause my name to be remembered. I will come to you and bless you. And if you make an altar of stone for me, you shall not build it of cut stones. For if you wield a tool, or you will profane it. Every stone is individual. Every brick is the same. Think of the Tower of Babel. They built the Tower of Babel with bricks. The Hebrew mindset is we are to be individuals. We're not supposed to look the same. In Greek mindset, we're all the same. We're supposed to be individuals. David?
Yeah, just thought about something. Your tour guide said that they had chips of flint scattered all over the place down there. Flint is fairly hard, and the way that you make the arrowheads is by knapping. It could have actually been flint that they were using and hitting for making all of these carvings, and so there are a lot of small chunks that just got scattered all over the place.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Peggy? And you shall not go up by steps to my altar, that your nakedness may not be exposed on it. As we were coming down from Mount Sinai, down towards the bottom, you can see this, and those are areas where they would have had the livestock, so they couldn't get away. Some of those corrals, were about 3 feet tall. These corrals would have been, there's 2 altars that I'm going to show you here. I think they're coming up pretty quick, but there's 2 altars where Moses would have done sacrifices to Yahweh to try to make an atonement for the Yeah, that's another little shot. Thank you. Good timing. For the sins of the golden calf. So let me ask you this, guys, something to think about. Because the 2.9 some million people didn't do anything, but God accredited the sin of the golden calf of the 3,000 to the 2.9 million, and God never changes, what kind of sins are accredited to us because of our inactivity? Something to think about. Just to close. Oh, right here is a little gateway that they would have brought the animals through. There would have, these pictures don't show it real well, but there would be, and there's an altar here in kind of off center, just a little bit to the left. You know, you can see kind of the back there, and then a little bit further to the left, you can see a corner, and that would have been a fairly big altar. Not nearly like the one of the golden calf, but good size. Okay. Exodus 19. And you shall set bounds for the people all around, saying, beware that you do not go up on the mountain or touch the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through. Whether beast or man, he shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain. That always kind of confused me, because it's like, you know, when you're out walking in a mountain, it's not like it's flat and then all of a sudden the mountain's right there. It's like, how do you know where the mountain starts? And these round marble, this round white marble, I think the pictures I have, well, just in this picture, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I got a better picture coming up. But these would have been used for markers. There's 4 in the front and at least 3 in the back. All right, Peggy? And that's my foot right there. So, yep. And they're round. I didn't try lifting one up, but I'd assume that they're pretty heavy. Okay. Okay. All right. Now Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and now he had killed how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. And Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me and even more if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. Okay. So he arose and ate and drank and went in strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mountain of God. Then he came there to a cave and lodged there. And behold, the word of Yahweh came to him, and he said to him, what are you doing there, Elijah? Okay. This is at the base of Mount Sinai. Just off my left ear would be considered the base of the mountain. And that's where the people were not allowed to go up. It was hot there. And this isn't the best picture, but if you go from the peak and you go straight down and just a little bit to the right, you'll see that black hole. That's what they say is Elijah's cave. Because scripture said that Elijah fled and went to the mountain of God. Okay? That's a little better picture. And they told us before we went, we had to sign up if we wanted to go to Elijah's cave or to the top of the mountain. And we had to sign up and we had to sign waivers. And then the night before, we had to sign waivers again. And they told us that there are no emergency helicopters. If you're going in your group and somebody gets hurt, you have to figure out a way to get them down. So it's kind of like, oh, this could be interesting. A little closer up of Elijah's cave. And this is just taken with a phone. So, okay. Oh, the gentleman from Canada that was a retired firefighter, after we had left Saudi, he was going to go back and go to Elijah's cave by himself. And I told him, I said, I don't know if that's a good idea. Him and I got along pretty good. Found out he was a Sabbath keeper as well. He went there and he was taking pictures as he was going, and he had sent us a few pictures en route because there was a cell phone tower about a mile from there. And when he got just outside of Elijah's cave, he went to take like a selfie or something, and his phone didn't work. And he's had the phone for a couple of years, and he said it has never not worked. And he tried taking some other pictures, nothing. He went in Elijah's cave, and he said he could just feel the presence of God there. And so he took some time and he prayed, and he thought, well, you know what? I'm going to have lunch. So he sat outside of the cave and he had lunch, and he prayed some more. And he was there for maybe an hour, maybe a little bit more. And it was like, okay, it's time to go. I got, to hike down. And he starts going away. And he turns around and says, I'm going to try my phone and see if the camera works again. And he got a picture, and he got some more pictures. But it was just interesting how his phone always worked taking pictures, except for when he was right at the entrance of Elijah's cave. And I have no reason to doubt him. Okay, next. And this was at the base of Mount Sinai. They set up it was as nice as you could get. In the back right-hand corner, they had generators. They had temporary lights that were on at night. They had bathrooms, showers. It was great. You can see an extension cord on the bottom right-hand side running to those lights. Okay. This was our table. Okay. My bride. Okay. This was obviously a night shot. And I told, I think it was Joel, I said, boy, it would be nice if we could stay out here more than just one night. And he goes, yeah, I think we're going to change that in the future where we stay out here 2-3 nights. It's a different feel. It feels good. Okay, next. And you can see here, we're finishing eating our meal. And in the back, you can see Mount Sinai where the top is burnt. Okay. That's a little close up. Okay. Another picture. Okay. Exodus 19. So it came about on the third day when it was morning that there were thundering and lightning flashes and a thick cloud upon the mountain, and a very loud trumpet sounded. So all the people who were in the camp trembled. And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Okay. Now think of those white pillars. Think of where the mountain starts to rise. It's all right there. It makes sense. Okay. And Mount Sinai was all in smoke because Yahweh descended upon it in fire, and its smoke ascended like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked violently. When the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him with thunder. It's interesting how after Yeshua died, there was a violent earthquake. Yahweh comes down on the mountain, and there was an earthquake. Okay, John?
Yeah, Kelly, could you see that? I think you showed Elijah's cave there. That was Mount Sinai, was it not? Or Mount Horeb?
Yep.
I didn't notice any burning there when you in that picture, but in the other picture it showed all that black on the top. But if you
go back, Peggy, go back.
Yeah, there. I don't see any black.
Nope, it wasn't high enough. It's maybe about the top 25%, top 30% is where it was burned.
It looks like I can see the top in this picture here.
Yep. That'd be Elijah's cave there.
But I don't see any.
Nope, it wasn't high enough. Wasn't high enough. Okay, slow down, Peggy. I want to show us. Okay. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, there's lots of black in that one.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
stay right there. Now on the right-hand side, okay, you see where the black comes down and then the peak jogs up? And if you go straight down from that peak and just a little to the right, that's Elijah's cave. So there you have an idea of the elevation. But because the way the mountain lays out, you have to hike above Elijah's cave and then descend down to it. If you try to go across, evidently that's not a wise decision. I don't know. I've never done that. Next time I go, I'm going to go to Elijah's cave. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. And that line of demarcation is very, very evident. Okay. And that's Vlad. That's the guy who went to Elijah's cave. Him and I got to be pretty good buds. And this is the hike. And they got us up at 5:30, had breakfast. I told Joel and Rhonda the night before, I said, I would like to have the bread and the wine before we go up. I said, Debbie and I are going to do it. I brought enough for everybody. If anybody wants to join us, that's fine, because it's a covenant. It's a covenant. And I wanted to remember the covenant before I climbed the mountain of God. And I got to tell you, I mean, I can tell you guys this because you're my brothers and sisters. I was having a problem if I had to urinate while I was climbing. It's like, Lord, I don't want to do this on the mountain. And I drank, how much water did I drink? I don't know. It was at least a couple liters, but I sweated out. It was, I did not, if I remember right, I don't think I did. And I brought extra bags, little plastic bags, if I had to go number 2, because in my mind, that'd be desecrating God's mountain.
Quick question.
Yep.
Looking at this picture, and in the center of the picture, straight above the people, I see a hole. Is that?
Oh, that's Elijah's cave there. Yeah.
That's Elijah. Okay, so now this gives perspective. The burnt is off to the one side, and then there's Elijah's cave.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a
I
good
misspoke a couple minutes ago about that other thing, so I apologize.
No,
Yes,
this
you're
is a
right.
good picture.
Yep.
David?
Okay. Oh, David?
Yeah. Just upload a few more pictures taken from Google Maps in the chat section. But you can see just how much black there is in the entire area. I'm not sure how much of this is scrub and it causing regions of shadow from the satellite pictures, but there's a lot so I'm not entirely sure how much of this is scarring from the fire and or how much of it is other stuff at this point.
I'm glad you said that, because if you the mountain ridge that's right behind us, if you go back there and to the right, and I don't know which direction that is because it was whatever, there were some other peaks over there that were, I don't think they were as dark as this, because there is a geological term for the coloring of the rock, and I tried to remember that, but I forget what it's called.
But
So
there
is
the first one,
some discoloration as well.
So,
but I have
there's
a picture of a rock. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of that color up to the north and west as well.
Yep. And I have an interesting picture further on. Okay. Oh, if you look to the left, you'll see that fence. How the Saudi government had put this fence up, and then there was, I don't know if it was a windstorm or what, but there was a bunch of sand that knocked the fence down. was it just a freak thing of nature, or did Yahweh say, you know what, I'm opening this up to my children so they can come and see my holy mountain? I don't know what the objective was, but the fence is down. Okay. And I had a camelback, which you can have, I think each bladder held 2.5 liters or something like that. So I had at least half a gallon. Oh, gosh, I forget. I had a lot of water on me and I ran out towards the end. So if anyone goes, bring more water than you think. Okay, next. Yep, more pictographs. Okay. Okay. Yep. And this was just weird. I don't know if that's left over from Moses's time or Elijah, but it it was a Toyota, if I remember right. Yes, Tagore?
So, how much time roughly has it taken for you to scale this mountain?
I'm going to give you just a little story, then I'll answer that.
Okay.
I trained for about 3 months for this. I mean, it wasn't real hard training, but I told Debbie, my wife, I said, I want to dance with you on the top of Mount Sinai. I want to dance with my bride on the top of Mount Sinai. And I was lifting. I had no idea what to expect. I was lifting weights. I was walking. I mean, maybe a couple times a week. It wasn't real in depth, but and Debbie, she'd take the dogs for a walk. And in the morning, when we got up and we took off, there was about 15 of us that took off for the top. And the plateau of the elders is about 3/4 of the way up. And we'll get to scripture as we come to that. But they said you can get up and down in about 7 hours. And they wanted us to be on the mountain no later than 6:15, 6:30. We didn't get on the mountain until 7. So Vlad was in the front, and him and I were right behind the leader. And Debbie, my wife, was kind of in the back. And then as we're climbing, you know, we're talking back and forth, and all of a sudden she was right behind me. And later she told me, she said, you know, God, I want to dance with my husband on the top, and I want to climb this for you. And she said, I felt empowered. And she actually beat me to the top. And we did dance on the top of Mount Sinai. And coming down, one of the gals from Hong Kong did not have a walking stick. It was a lot easier going up than coming down. And so it took her away. So Debbie and I came down with her. So it took us a total of 8 hours. But if you're in shape, you can do the whole thing in less than 6. Hands down, you can do it in less than 6. And if you push it hard, it could probably be 4.5 or 5. But you're there. Enjoy the trip. Don't fly through it. So if you figure 6 to 7 to 8 hours, you're safe. Okay. And that was one of our guides. It's funny. As we're climbing, we'd say, okay, hold on. They'd sit and have a cigarette, or they'd take a hit of their vape when they were vaping. And it's like, really? But these guys climb, they're like goats. Okay. And this is how they mark the trail. They'd pile rocks up. Okay. Just a shot. Okay. And there were some areas, I mean, you had to climb, and there were some areas that weren't too bad, but it was a pretty good poke. Okay. Oh, we all kind of gathered, and we were sitting, and I looked up and I go, look, the bush that didn't burn. Just throwing some humor in there. And yeah. Next. This is his name. This guy's name is John, and he was originally from Wisconsin, but he was living in Texas at the time. And if you look at his feet, just the elevation on his feet difference, that's about what we climbed. So there were some areas that were a little less than that, some areas that were a little more. And if you look behind him, you can see, where we had been. Okay. And yeah, the pictures don't do it justice for the steepness, but it gives you an idea. Okay. A selfie with my sweetheart. Okay. And we stopped here to catch our breath, and I pointed up to the guide, and I said, "Are we going through that saddleback up there?" He goes, "Yep." And I thought, well, it's too late to turn around now. So that picture doesn't no justice on how steep that was. Okay. And some of the shots were just breathtaking. Okay. There's another little line, a picture of the mountain. Okay. If you notice down in the bottom right-hand side, it looks like it's kind of flat there. And when we went through that saddleback, there was an area about the size of a football field. And God told Moses to take the elders of Israel and go up there and have a covenant meal. And they call this the plateau of the elders. Because if you're on the plateau of the elders, you can't see back down where the children of Israel were. Exodus 24. And then he said to Moses, "Come up to Yahweh, you and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall worship at a distance. Moses alone, however, shall come near to Yahweh, but they shall not come near, nor shall the people come up with him." Then Moses went up with Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu and 70 of the elders, and they saw the God of Israel, and under his feet there appeared to be pavement of sapphire as clear as the sky itself. Yet he did not stretch out his hand against the nobles of the sons of Israel, and they beheld God, and they ate and drank. And this is all part of a ancient Middle Eastern covenant of having a covenant meal. And that's what they did. They climbed 3/4 up the mountain and had a covenant meal. Yes, Tagore?
Yeah, give me an idea. The 80-year-old man go up and bring 2 tablets of stone by himself, and Joshua at some point at the middle height. Do you see a range of mountains when we say Sinai, or it a single mountain with a peak?
Good
How do
question. When we get to the top, you'll see that there's another peak behind it as well. And I don't, if I knew the direction, it'd be back to the left of this. There's another peak, and I wanted to go to that, but we didn't have time. Maybe next trip. But yeah, I think there's at least 2 peaks to this mountain. And right here is a good picture of the plateau of the elders. It's kind of flat. Yeah, and not only that, when you start studying this, didn't Moses go up and down, was it 4 times or 6 times in a short amount of time? Up and down, up and down, up and down. It's like, wow. And he was wearing sandals. Well, we think he was wearing sandals, or if he was going barefoot, I don't know, but it was impressive what he climbed. Yeah, he was 80, 81 at the time. Any other comments, John?
Yeah, that when they had the dinner there, would that not been with Jesus Christ? Like if you look at 1 Corinthians 10, it says Christ is the God of the Old Testament. He's the rock that followed them in the wilderness. He says, and don't test me like they did in the wilderness. So that would that not be the being that became Jesus Christ? At that time, I guess his name was the Word, according to 1 John, the first verse there. It says there was God and then there was the Word. So
yeah, I would think this is Kelly's talking now. I would think that the scripture says Yeshua is the manifestation of God. So I would have a tendency to believe that. And you can even study back in the Hebrew. There's at least 7,000 times where there's Aleph Tavs, which is Messiah. So
yeah, I think one other place, Kelly, would be in I think John or Romans 8. It says he was said the Pharisees were and the Sadducees were children of the devil. Well, that didn't go over so good. But I think what people miss is he says, that's why you're trying to kill me. But the next verse, I think I didn't notice it till just a year or two ago. It said, Moses didn't try and kill me. So who was dealing with Moses?
yeah,
Just a thought.
yeah, yeah. And you can see this is part of the plateau as well. Okay, Peggy. And that white marble, those white marble stones that were at the base of the mountain that marked the boundary, there was a little piece of white stone up there. There was actually a bunch of them. And that is in a souvenir pile that I have. And just getting them through customs is a whole nother story.
Oh, I thought that was manna.
I don't think that hung out quite that long. However, I bet there's still manna in the ark as a testimony. Okay. Yeah. Now we're ascending to the top part of the mountain, and you get a better picture looking back through the plateau of the elders. And way in the back, you see that little saddleback. So I'm guessing when Moses and Aaron heard the children of Israel in the sin of the golden calf, they heard the sound, but they couldn't see it because of that saddleback. They couldn't see beyond it. But once they got to that saddleback, then you can see down and see everything. So scripture makes, once you see it like this, it's like, oh, that makes sense. He can't see it, but he could hear it. And I think I was the only guy and the only person in the group that every so often I'd either whistle or give a holler, and it would just echo and echo and echo. So, yeah. Okay. And that was one of the other climbing guides. And it was hot. Oh, was it hot? Okay. Another shot of the plateau of the elders. Okay. Now we're starting to get into the line where it starts to get black. Okay. And you can see the climb. It's pretty steep. If you look at Debbie's hands with she's wearing her hat, how she's got her hands and she's climbing. It was a climb. Okay. And you can see how steep it is too. Okay. Oh, and we're just leaving the plateau of the elders, and we're about 10 minutes up. And this gentleman right here, now that's flat. The gentleman from Wisconsin, I was maybe 30, 40 feet ahead of Debbie. And Debbie goes, Kelly. I said, yeah. She goes, can you come here? I said, why? What? John wants to talk to you. Okay. And he's the guy from Wisconsin living in Texas. So I walk back down there and I go, yeah. And he goes, a week ago today, I was in the emergency room for heart defibrillation. And I looked at him, and the first thing I thought is, how are we going to get you down off this mountain? He's about 5'11", 210 pounds. And I'm thinking, how are we going to get you down? And I go, how do you feel now? He goes, I could start to feel it a little bit. He goes, I'm not going to go any further. So the tour guides had walkie-talkies so we could still call the base camp. So we called them. We found out that, yes, we were coming back down the identical way we went up. So he stayed there, and Debbie and I had been praying with people for a little while, and she goes, well, Kelly, we need to pray for healing for him. I go, yes, we do. So we prayed for healing, and he stayed there. By the time we went to the top and came back, it was maybe an hour and 20 minutes, and he had some good quiet time with God there, and he ate and just about took a nap, and he went down, had no problems. And I was just saying, praise God, because I have no idea how we were going to get him down. So, okay, next. Oh, just some of the cacti on the way up. Okay. Oh, and this is one of the gals from Hong Kong. And as she was sitting here, we were catching our breath, and she started giggling all of a sudden. And she goes, I actually video recorded it. She goes, I just had a vision that I was here and I was with people I didn't know, and I was on the mountain of God. So it was kind of like just about like a deja vu type thing. And if you look behind her, you can see some of that mountain being discolored over there as well, that I think John had brought up earlier. Okay, next. And we're climbing, and the rocks are discolored. Okay. Oh, Debbie's on the top. She made it to the top before me. This is the top of Mount Sinai. And you can see behind her to her right how there's another little peak there. Okay, next. Ta-da! And it was windy up there. Windy, windy. Okay, next. And that's that to the back left. That's that other peak I was telling you about. I was thinking, well, heck, I could go a bit there and back in half hour, but that would have been a bad decision. Okay, next. Selfie on the top of Mount Sinai. Okay. And the tour guides were just hanging out. And the gal from Brazil, okay, next, said she wanted to get a picture. She wanted to fly her flag up there. And I thought she was going to fly the flag of Brazil. Well, she gets this lion out, lion flag, Lion of the tribe of Judah. Okay. Next one. And she got it out like that, and it was windy, and that flag was snapping. And all of a sudden, that flag collapsed, came back on her, and then it went straight back out again. And she goes, oh, my papa kissed me. Okay, next. The morning we left Wisconsin, I don't know, we had to fly out of here. We were leaving the house like at 4 a.m. And I'm thinking, here I am going to God's mountain in the ancient land of Midian. I can't go empty-handed. I got to bring something. And I was in Israel in 2020. So I bought some olive oil. So I had a little real small bottle of olive oil. And I told Debbie, we were maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes down from the top. And I said, oh, I got to anoint this. I have to anoint this. So I just anointed, there we go. I just anointed this rock and said a prayer. And that's my climbing stick. If you guys ever go, bring a climbing stick. It is well worth your money. Trust me. And you can see the topography in the background. It's desert now. I don't know what that wilderness was back then. Okay, next. Okay, now look at this stone right in the middle. You can see how it's dark on the outside. And then I took my fist and I hit it. Next one. And you can see that the inside, there is no discoloration. So if scripture is true, where God descended on the mountain like a fire, the outside's discolored and the inside is not, showing that the heat source was external and not internal. Because if this was a volcanic mountain, it would be the same throughout. And then just a shot of guys that made it. This person from the second right, that's John. That's who had the heart problem. That he still made it down fine. So praise God. Okay, next. Shade was a commodity. It felt really good under there. Okay, next. That picture does no justice on how steep it was. Okay, next. That shade felt really good when I got there. Was that the bush that didn't burn? Who knows? Tagore?
Sometime back, few slides, like maybe 30, 40 slides ago, back, you said like the rock was soft, like slate or how about the rock here? Is it different?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I never took my knife out and kind of tried to scrape this. I think I was more concerned with climbing and descending, ascending and descending. That's a good question. I don't know how hard it was, but there was a
Okay.
lot of it.
Just trying to envision two tablets of stone were cut out of this rock.
Yep.
What kind of material could that be? Just a curiosity question. Just go ahead, please.
Yeah, it would have probably have been some type of granite. I would think. And those tablets, I mean, the Ark of the Covenant, it gives the dimensions. The Ark of the Covenant is not that big. It's just a little box. I don't think the tablets were as big as the ones Charlton Heston had.
Yeah, probably an 80-year-old man has to carry them down. And again, he has to do second time.
Yeah.
This done with his own hands.
Exactly.
Well, an 80-year-old man who at 120 was still not infirm. So
True. Yep. Just like Caleb. Okay, next. And that's our last meal together as a group in a restaurant. I want to encourage you guys to go on Ron Wyatt's website, because what you guys saw tonight was I kid you not, a 30,000 foot flyby. I think Ron Wyatt's website is called, give me a second here. I think it's Ark Discovery, ARK discovery.com.org. But spend some time on their Ark Discovery and you will be amazed at what is on there. Yeah, for whatever things Paul told us, for whatever things were written beforehand were written for our learning, that through the patience and comfort of the scriptures, we can have hope. We got to remember, get rid of our bitterness, get rid of our doubt and resentment, and forgive people. Because the way we forgive people is how we are forgiven. And that is so critically important. Get rid of the bitterness. It was a Yahweh tree that Moses threw into the water. You go ahead.
Yeah, some of the places you have shown us where the golden calf and this where the water got rock and the graffiti that you have shown. Seems to me, looking at the pictures, they're almost like like a virgin state. Perhaps that may not be the case after a few years as the tourists come. And do you feel the same way when you actually visited these places?
You hit the nail on the head. I told my wife, actually, my wife and I were hoping to go the year before, but something happened where we couldn't go. And so when this opportunity came up to go, I said, we're going. We are going. And I didn't know that Saudi had just opened up tourism in 2019. So we were there, what, 3.5, 4 years after they opened up. So yeah, there's a lot of things that have not been developed. So a lot of the things that we saw in pictures that I shown tonight, they've been that way for thousands of years, at least 3,000 years. So yeah, I was excited and honored and blessed. And yeah, it's when we came down off Mount Sinai, Debbie just started picking up all these water bottles. I bet she picked up 50, at least 50 water bottles. And I kept saying, honey, we got to go. Come on. She goes, Kelly, this is God's mountain. I can't leave this here. And it's sad, but it's going to be commercialized, which is sad.
Typically, Catholic Church would come and build some sites, whether they're real or fake, but that's expected over the years. But
Yeah.
you also mentioned an interesting fact that the whole region gets about half-inch a year. That probably is the cause for these things to survive. If there is more moisture, definitely it would weather away all the rocks and the graffiti would be gone. And even the split rock may not be in that shape. But we have an interesting observation that no rain and what all bad effect these would get is only through the wind and sand particles hitting them.
Yeah. And I don't know where I had heard that they had said it was about 1/4 inch of rain annual. That's not much. That's not much.
No, what I think is like quarter inch of rain whenever it falls, it just evaporates with the heat, 110 you are saying.
Yeah,
right?
it was at least 100. It was hot. And the morning we climbed twice, there was just a little sprinkle. I mean, it felt like my face got hit like 5, 6 times with a couple drops.
Mm.
And that was it. And one time when it was really hot, there was this big cloud that came and blocked the sun, and it was like, oh, does that feel good? Yes, Chris?
I was born and raised in Las Vegas, and when I was in high school, right when I was about to graduate, it was on the east side. It was the undeveloped. It's not like it looks today, where the whole thing is paved. It was very much looks like where you just were.
Yep.
And there was a rocket fuel plant that exploded, and it treated the rocks just like what you just showed.
Wow.
The rocket, it was ammonium perchlorate plant. It was huge. It caused like a earthquake that you could feel in Los Angeles. There was 2 huge explosions, and it's just really random that my dad and I used to do marathon bicycling back then, and it blew up where we would do that. So we went back doing our thing after it was over, and you could see that the rocks were black on one side, but if you rolled it over, it wasn't black on the other side. So it really lines up with what you were showing there.
Let me encourage anyone who's listening to this, if you have an opportunity to go. It is a trip of a lifetime. The scriptures, as Debbie and I are reading through Torah, when they're talking about things, we just look at each other and go, wow, man, we were there. What we're reading in the scriptures, we were there. It just brings the Bible, it brings it alive. Or even if you go to Israel, go. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I just want to encourage you guys to do it if you get a chance. It's a trip of a lifetime. Yes, Rod?
Yeah, I was going to just ask that. How would you compare going to Israel or Jerusalem To your, it seemed like you were
there
doing
was a little-
something every day.
There was a little glitch there. Could you repeat that, please?
How would you compare going to Jerusalem or Israel to your trip? You know, maybe people are thinking of going one place or the other. Have you
I've
ever been
been
to
to-
Jerusalem?
I've been to Israel twice, and the first time was good. The second time was phenomenal. And this trip was different because you weren't with the people, but you were looking at all the evidence, the archaeological evidence, the historical evidence, the biblical evidence. It all piles on top of each other. And I enjoyed this trip the most, but yet there were parts of the other trips that were really, really sweet as well. So if you go on this one, be prepared to walk. You don't have to climb things. There was a gal there that didn't do any climbing. She walked everywhere, but and we were only there for, I think, 6 nights. It wasn't long, but it was good. It was, and the scriptures just come alive. But if you can do both, do both. But I'd encourage that if you could.
Why don't we let Kelly finish up and then you can do your pictures? How's that sound?
Yeah, that's fine. I thought he was done, but
Yep.
And
Yeah,
then-
no, I'm done. I'm done.
Oh, you don't want the rest of the slides?
Oh, what's left?
You have 14 slides
14
left.
slides left.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. And the thing about it is, when I saw in the Hebrew that the sins of the golden calf, the physical adultery, and the spiritual idolatry are connected to not keeping Sabbath, oh my gosh, my mind was blown away. And you don't see it in the English. And, you know, I came out of a belief that said, the Old Testament is done away with. You know, and so as I was learning to keep Sabbath, I had to kill a lot of sacred cows, and I'm still killing some. So, okay, next. Yeah, there we go. Not keeping Sabbath. Okay. The conclusion, when all has, Ecclesiastes 12:13, the conclusion of the whole matter, fear God and keep his commandment. This applies to us today. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether good or evil. We need to ponder that. If you love me, keep my commandments. Yep. John said that a lot of times. Okay. Yep. More examples. And love isn't the Greek idea of love saying, oh, honey, I love you. Love is doing something. Love is action. For if we, in John 5:46, if you believe Moses, you'd believe me because it was about me that he wrote. But if you don't believe the words he wrote, how are you going to believe what I say? Yeah. And go ahead, if you guys can write those down. And actually, you can go on YouTube and put in there Penny Cadwell Split Rock. She has an awesome video. It's a music video that she sings, and it has drone footage of the rock, and it has some overlays. It's very, very good. Challenge you. Yep. We need to look at our own traditions. Are we willing to unlearn our traditions and see if they line up with the Word of God? Keep the scriptures. We got to remember who they're written to, the culture of the time, and if you haven't done a study, let me encourage you to do a study between Greek thought and Hebrew thought. You'll be appalled. Yep. Yahweh's one. Yeshua is the chosen son. The Holy Spirit is our helper. And the scriptures are one book.